In a move that President Biden called long overdue, the House of Representatives passed his $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill on Friday night. So let's bring in now to discuss this big win for the Biden administration, U.S. Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm. Secretary Granholm, thank you for being here. And look, Secretary of Energy, a lot of people want to talk to you right now. So let me start with that. We've already acknowledged, you have as well, that people are going to be paying more to heat their homes this winter than they did last year. We're seeing record gas prices in many places across the country already. Is there anything, the president's power is limited here, but is there anything you all believe the president can do and anything he is doing to try to alleviate some of that pressure?
Of course, he's very concerned about what people are going to be paying. I mean, if you're talking about at home, fortunately, Congress passed something called the American Rescue Plan that's separate from the infrastructure bill that put about $4 billion into low-income heating and energy savings. And so states that administer that, we are very much encouraging that to get out to provide relief from natural gas prices or home heating oil, propane, et cetera, at home. On the gasoline side of things, obviously, gasoline is produced and sold on a global market. And so any president of any country doesn't have the ability to control that unless you are part of OPEC, which are a group of countries that are the major oil producers. And unfortunately, OPEC has over 90% of the supply. They've got control over 90% of the supply and 50+% of the production of oil and gas. They just decided last week that they were not going to increase production. And just by the laws of supply and demand, when they don't increase production, that means that prices potentially go up. The president's really concerned about that, and he's looking at the limited options that he has to be able to provide some relief. But it just underscores, TJ, the importance of a long-term strategy of diversifying away from fossil fuels, diversifying into clean energy where we're not so reliant upon the volatility of the fossil fuel market or controlled supplies by adversaries that may not have our best interests at heart.
And Secretary Granholm, you mentioned some of the long-term possible solutions with some, certainly some legislation that's been passed and some under consideration. But in the short term, everyone oftentimes wants to bring up the strategic petroleum reserves here in the U.S. Is that on the table still for President Biden? Does he think that could help?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of tools on the table, again, limited in terms of what he can do, but the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is one. Tomorrow, the U.S. Energy Information Agency, which is the nonpartisan energy source of projections for what energy costs and supplies are going to be, will come out with their next short-term energy report. And certainly everybody will be looking at that for a clue as to what the price of gasoline will be over the next few months.
And of course, Secretary Granholm, it's seen politically as a big win for the president, this $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill being passed. But aside from the politics, the reality of it, there's some $550 billion in new spending in there. How does this bill, though, translate to new jobs?
Oh, my gosh, there's so much in here to love. Obviously, there's roads and bridges and the people who will be working on that. But most importantly for your viewers, the people who will be driving on that. On average, people spend about $500 a year in repairs for their cars. But in addition to that, the fact that every family now will have access to high-speed internet, big investment in broadband, particularly in pockets of the country that don't have access, investment in removing lead pipes, which end up causing lead poisoning for children, both in homes and schools and businesses, investments in making sure we clean up some of these old Superfund polluted sites, which disproportionately negatively impact communities of color, investments in capping oil and gas wells, investments in building out the transmission grid to make sure that we can add the renewable energy that we want to create, investments in electric vehicle charging infrastructure so that the electric vehicle chargers, if you want to buy an electric car, are not just in the wealthier areas of town, but are in rural areas, are in poorer areas, along freeways, et cetera. There's so much in this bill, including investments in demonstration projects for next generation technologies, which can get us to that clean baseload power that everybody's looking for.
Well, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm, you can come back and talk energy anytime with that passion that you have. It's really, really good to see you. All right, we'll see you down the road, okay?
Very good. Thank you.
Well, hey there.
there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.